Hi everybody, my name is Warren Strybosh and I'm the founder of the Find Group of Companies. I've been asked today to speak to you on a topic called It's Not About Money, Learning the Tenets of Financial Literacy. And basically, it's all about, I've been asked to speak about how I can give you some tips on how to be financially stable given your salaries and what you currently have. And it's similar to here in Australia. A lot of people ask the same question: how can they do better, or what can they do with their money, or what can they do to try and improve their situation, or not go backwards in regards to financial planning or financial literacy. So what I want to do today, before I get into some of the tips, is I want to talk about where I've come from, just so you can get a bit of an understanding of who I am and how I've come to be where I'm at today. How is it that I'm speaking to you today compared to anyone else in Australia? So my background is this: I'm 52 years of age, and I first of all went to school, and from school I did my grade. I moved 4 primary schools and I moved 4 high schools. My parents separated when I was 6 years of age. And so we moved around a lot when my parents were married, because they married when they were in the Air Force. And then when they divorced, we moved around a lot of houses. And so I went to 4 primary schools and 4 high schools. I failed year 12. And so because I failed year 12, and more specifically, I failed English in my year 12, I wasn't able to go to university. So I actually had to repeat high school or college back then before I could go to university to get a bachelor's degree. And so I repeated my year 12. Thankfully, the second time I passed my English. I mean, it sounds funny, here I am, I'm living in Australia, I speak English, and I failed English. And then there's a lot of Filipinos who are studying English as their second language, and they probably would have passed given that I failed. And so it does seem a bit ironic, doesn't it? But because I moved around a lot, I wasn't very confident in writing essays. I wasn't very confident in speaking. I wasn't very confident in generally English as a subject. And so I failed. And thankfully I passed the second time. I then went to uni and I studied. My first course that I studied was accounting and computer science. I didn't do very well on the computer science side of things because it was a lot of programming, and I didn't like sitting at a computer and just programming and learning coding and computer language. And so I found that difficult, but I enjoyed the accounting side of the business. I then actually went into the Army. So I was in the Australian Army for a short period of time. Unfortunately, I got injured in the Army, and so I had to be medically discharged. When I got medically discharged, I was living next to a different university, which is called Deakin University. And so I rang up Deakin and I said, what course can I do? I need to go and do a course. I need to do something because now I'm out of the Army and I don't have a job. And so they said you could do a teaching course. And I said, I'll do teaching. I think I can do teaching. I think I might be good as a teacher. So I did 4 years of teaching. And when I was doing my Bachelor of Education, I was doing what's called a double degree. So it was a Bachelor of Education as well as a Bachelor of Science. And I worked out that if I worked hard in my 4 years, not only could I get a double degree, but I could also get a double major. So most of the time when you're doing a bachelor's degree, you're getting a major and a sub-major. I worked out I could get 2 majors. And so I actually worked hard to get a major in mathematics and a major in psychology. And so from there, I was very fortunate after I finished my double degree to pick up a 6-month contract in a school in the country of Australia, in regional Victoria. And after my 6 months, I was offered, without having to apply, I was offered a 2-year contract. And it's similar, I suppose, to over there where you get offered contract work. And I was offered a contract work without having to apply because I did very well in my first 6 months of teaching. After my 2 years of teaching, I was offered then an ongoing position without having to apply. I actually walked up to the school principal, the person who owned the school, and I said I'd like 5-year contract or an ongoing position. And I was very fortunate because I worked very hard as a teacher and I was good as a teacher, and they offered me the ongoing position without having to do an interview. They just said, don't tell anyone else, but you can have this ongoing position. I then taught for another year and a half. And so I was up to finishing my 4th year as a teacher. And I went up to the principal and said, I'd like to go and do further studies and start potentially a business outside of teaching. Can I do teaching part-time? Because in Australia, you can do some part-time teaching. Unfortunately, the principal didn't want to lose me. And so he said, you can do full-time or no time. And so I said to him, I'm going to quit at the end of the year. And I did that. Now, in hindsight, and I'll talk about tips later on, that was probably not the best decision I could have made. I was a really good teacher at the time. I wanted to challenge myself in other areas, but I probably shouldn't have just walked away from teaching and the security or the stability that money was bringing in, because I was married and I was risking everything. And in hindsight, I probably shouldn't have done that. It's worked out okay, but if I was to guide someone, I would probably say, don't be rash, don't make those kind of big decisions lightly, or give it some thought. Anyway, so I did that and I took a big risk. After teaching, and I left teaching, I started working as a financial planner. And then for a number of years, I did financial planning, and then I went back and finished off my accounting qualifications. Throughout my life, so I've got a 20-year-old son, I've got a 17-year-old daughter, and a 15-year-old daughter. And I only this year have finished my studies. I now have over 7 qualifications. So I have 7 qualifications. I also have a lot of certifications and a lot of other certificates. So I have a lot of qualifications, and I have been doing study, exams, assignments nearly all my life. So here was someone who failed at school to someone who has some of out of all of my friends, I mean, some people have got PhDs, which I've got a post-grad. So I've got my bachelor's degree and I've done a post-grad, but I haven't done a master's or a PhD. But I've got 7 qualifications. And so even when you look at a PhD, where it's a number of years, when you add up all my years and all my studies and all my assignments, I've done quite a lot of study. And there's a good reason for that, and I'm going to lead into that as to one of my tips. How does that help me in that regards? So I've then, from doing financial planning, accounting, I decided to set up the Find Group and to offer those services, to offer accounting, to offer financial planning, and to also then give back to our local communities here in Australia, and also to help overseas. And that's how I come to you guys, to be in the area of Honeywy and to have a staff in the Honeywy, because it all started about probably 6-7 years ago. I lost a friend of mine, a lady, to cancer. She used to live across the road from me when I was younger. And it actually had an impact on me. I had to kind of pause, sit down, and it really kind of like, wow, I've actually lost someone who's my age, someone who was close to me when I was younger. And it just made me realize how short life is. And I decided back then that I was going to give back to others and do other things rather than just working on my business. I was going to try and help the community and help also overseas. And so I set up what was called the Find Foundation, where we do community papers. Locally here in Australia, we give free advertising to schools, non-for-profits, sporting clubs and other charities and all that kind of stuff. And I also set up the business in Honeywy, so Find Hope Today. And my aim or dream is to try and create as many jobs of employment for people living in Honeywy, as well as trying to create opportunities here in Australia alongside me doing my work. So that's a bit of background to my situation. Here was someone who failed high school, who then went to uni. And during my uni time, I actually was homeless for a short period of time. I left home and I was living with a lady, and she had 2 dogs, and I had a room that I was, so to speak, like boarding, so living with someone else. And I think the lady got a bit unhappy because I was very friendly with the dogs. I would come home and the dogs would be sitting on her lap. The dogs would come running to me, wagging their tails and everything and getting really excited. And her dogs were like her children. And so I think she got a bit jealous. So she just said to me, "You need to leave." And she just basically kicked me out of her house. And I had nowhere to live for about a month. So I was living on people's couches. I had no money. I was working during uni. So I didn't have my parents to look after me. I didn't have anyone else to look after me. So I would be going to uni full time. And I would then be working at a petrol station 2 days or 2 nights of the week to try and help cover some of my costs, of my living costs. And I would be living cheaply in someone's house and having to do some work and all that kind of stuff around their home and things. So my life was not easy whilst I was going through uni. And then I shouldn't have probably left school like when I was a teacher, because it made it harder for us when I was starting out in business, because I didn't have any clients. And so it's taken me a long time to kind of establish myself. So that's my background. That's a bit about myself. And so what I'm going to do is, and the reason I'm sharing this is because I think sometimes when you hear someone from overseas, like myself or others, you think that they're successful and they've got it all together. Well, I want you to understand that I'm just like everybody else, that I have a story. And that story hasn't always been easy. And my story continues. And there's always challenges along the way. And I'm going to share with you what I've learned along the way and how I've come to be, I suppose, I've done okay. So I'm still working hard. I'm still wanting for myself to try and do better, not only financially, but with my family, spiritually, just trying to work on myself as an individual. And so what I'll do is I'm going to just pause, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to talk about some of the tips, some of the things that have helped me along the way, and some of the things that I've learned. Okay, so I'll just pause there. Hey everybody, it's Warren Strybush here. I'm actually using my phone for this part of the presentation. The reason being is that I've come into my boardroom. So I have an office. I'm just going to show you. I'm going to try and turn this around. No, I can't turn it around. Okay, so I'm just going to show you. I have an office that's separate to my house, and this is where I meet my clients. And so I have people who come through the front door there, and I'll talk to Jody over here, who's one of our receptionists. And we've got we've got a bathroom over here. So here's the bathroom. And what have we got? We've got the kitchen. So it's a little tiny kitchen in my office. We have Craig's room. So Craig is a general insurance. He's another person who rents the room from me. Now don't worry about how messy my office is, like as in my room. It's a bit messy because we've got a lot of boxes. We just took over another business, and so they had a lot of boxes. We tend to try and be paperless. So we don't like having all these boxes and everything, but we just bought someone else's business over, and they had all their client files, and they just dumped them all into our office and said good luck with it all. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to show you, as part of tips of becoming financially successful or improving your situation, is the first one is education. When I failed year 12, my English teacher, so my second English teacher, said to me, she said, "Knowledge is power." And I had to pause and I had to kind of think about that, because I'm thinking, is that good or bad? Knowledge is power. And what she was saying that with knowledge, it will open up doors. It will give you opportunities. That if you don't have that knowledge, or those education skills, or just the extra qualifications, it won't potentially open up doors. So if you think about it, and I'm just going to show you my room. First of all, I'm just going to show you, I'm proud of this, is that I was in the army. So there's, I don't know if you can see that, that's me when I was in the army. And so here are, so I'm going to show you some of my qualifications. These aren't all of them, they are a lot of them. So I get my clients to sit over here, so they sit there. And I get them to look at the wall when I'm sitting down. So if you picture me sitting in this chair here and you're the client looking across the table at me, I deliberately do it because I want those people to see all of my qualifications, okay, that are all around the room. All right, to see all my qualifications, my awards, my certificates, my certifications. I've actually got another one to put on the wall now. Now, that's the first tip. Knowledge is power. So even though you might have already got your bachelor's degree, one thing that people think or they do is they become complacent about knowledge. They stop learning. I would encourage everybody, doesn't matter how old you are, because I'm 52, you might be 24, or you might be 60 years of age. I would encourage you to not continue to learn. I would encourage you to continue learning, to either do other courses if you can, especially if they're offered for free, or read books. Pick a topic that you want to become good at. Now, you're not going to become good at a topic overnight, but if you're diligent and you apply yourself and you do a course or you get another qualification, that's going to add value to you as a person. And it's going to add value to people who see you as a person around you. So if you have, let's say, a person who's working in your business or who's working in your university and they've got a bachelor's degree and someone else has got a master's degree, so a bachelor's degree and a master's degree, it is more likely that the person who has the master's degree is going to be given more opportunities. But if you're a person who's got a bachelor's degree, but you then go and read a lot of books and you specialize in a certain area and you become known for understanding in that area, and if people want to then talk to you or hear from you, they'll invite you to come and speak. And next you know, you become a person of influence, someone who has power, but not power in a negative way, right? Knowledge is power. You have some potential to do good for others because of the education, because of what you've learned. So I'm very big on education. Like I said, I've got 7 qualifications and a lot of certificates and certifications, okay? And I'm continuing to learn. So even though I've got all of those qualifications, one of the things that I'm now learning is about personality. You know, I'm reading about Myers-Briggs. I'm reading about the 5-factor theory. I'm reading about the H-factor theory, right? Or the H-factor. I'm reading about enneagrams. And I want to learn more about people's personalities because I want to become, eventually, hopefully, maybe I'll become an expert about personalities and the biases with those personalities and how that has an impact on money. So everyone has a certain personality and people have biases in their lives that will influence or impact them and help them and determine the decisions they're going to make. And I want to learn more about that. I want to understand why you made your decision. How come you made that decision? Was it because of your personality? Is it a bias that you believe in that's led you down that path? Okay, and how has that impacted you from a money perspective? So I'm continuing to learn. So I'm not doing a course in personality, but because I've got my major in psychology, I'm going to basically use that and I'm going to get lots of books and I'm going to read about it. And then I'm going to write some material about it and get known, but it's going to take me a long time. I'm about to go to Japan next week. Japan has a saying. They look at things in decades, whereas most people look at things in months. So when you're looking at education, when you're looking to improve, when you're looking to do something, don't consider the short term. Don't think, oh, I've got to get this done next month. And if you don't do it, you fail. What you should do is you say, I want to try and achieve this. I want to try and achieve this. I'm going to give myself 5 years. Okay? But what I'm going to do now is I'm not going to wait the 5 years. I'm going to start doing some of the things that will lead towards me becoming better over those 5 years to get that qualification or to get that, to become more knowledgeable. And what you might find is that 5 years ends up being 2 years or 3 years. That's because you started and you continue on. So when you've got an idea or when you want to try and do something, don't get overwhelmed. Think about the Japanese with their decades and think about, okay, it's all about starting now
even though it might take you 10 years, as long as you start. So that's probably the second tip, is that education is very important. Knowledge is power. But the second thing is to start doing something about it. Don't wait till next year or the year after. Start doing little steps, little tasks, which then mean that you'll finish those steps, finishing those bigger tasks, you're completing your goals, and next thing you know, you've got another qualification, or you've become more knowledgeable in an area that others aren't. But it's all about starting now. So that's probably the second tip, is that don't wait. Over this Christmas break, think about where you are in the position that you're in and go, how can I become better in either my job or in myself? Now, it might not be that you'll get better immediately, but you need to think about it and then start doing something about it, okay? So there's a couple of tips for you. I'm gonna pause now. I'll go back to my computer and I'll give you a few more tips.
Hi everybody, I'm back here to talk about another tip. So the first tip was knowledge is power, and in relation to financial literacy, obviously what I'm encouraging you to do is just to read more or learn more about money. There's a lot of books on money. There's a lot of things that you can do in regards to improving your situation to do with money. So obviously today you're listening to me, but I would encourage you not to just stop there, is to read, talk to others, and just explore and learn how you can be better dealing with money. The next tip, two, whilst it's not practical, I think it's very important. And it doesn't just apply to financial literacy or to money or making more money or having more money or how to deal with money. It encompasses all of us in our lives. And tip two is, and it might seem a bit funny, but it's real. Tip two is don't be an idiot. Now, there's a lot of people out there who, and I use the word, and I don't use the word lightly, but I mean, it's an apt way to describe it. There are some idiots around us. There are people who do some silly things or dumb things. And so, and what I mean by don't be an idiot is learn what to do right compared to what is wrong to do. A lot of people don't give thought to their actions, thought to what they're going to say or do, and they go ahead and do it. And they don't think about the consequences. And unfortunately, sometimes those consequences can be harsh and can have a major impact, not only on the person who has done whatever they've done, but it can have an impact on people around them, on their work, and all of these things can have a direct impact on their money. I just recently got back from a conference in Adelaide and I was listening to William Green. So William Green is an author and a speaker, and he was the former editor of the Time magazine. And one of the key things that he had done is he had interviewed some of the world's most successful investors, people who had made lots and lots and lots of money. And what he was doing, he was going beyond success, and he was trying to find what makes people happy and how they could become a better human being. And one of his top things he said was, don't be an idiot. And so he said, well, how do you work out if you're an idiot or not, or the things that you're doing is not good? And so he kind of said there's a couple of things that you can do. And one is that you can go to some sources of material. One of them he referred to was Proverbs, and I spoke about this previously in my last webinar when I was speaking to some students at your university, is that Proverbs is a great place to start. Proverbs is a book in the Bible, and Solomon, he was one of the richest people on earth in history. And Solomon wrote Proverbs for his sons. And basically Solomon was saying, if you read these Proverbs, you won't be an idiot. If you apply these Proverbs to your life, you'll do well, you'll be successful, you'll be a better human being. And that's what William Green was saying at this conference. He was saying, that you need to look at the material and find things that are going to be improving your situation or will give you guidance and help And Proverbs does that. It has some really specific directions or do's and don'ts, so to speak, that Solomon was trying to pass on to his two sons. And so that's one source or one way you can do it. The other way to do it, and William Green spoke about this, was he called it inversion theory, or inverting. He talked about inverting, and what he meant by that, he said, it's hard to know what the right thing to do is. So when you're faced with a financial decision, let's think of a financial decision. Should I go and gamble my money? So should I take my money that I've saved in the bank, and should I go down to the casino or a legal cockfight, where the roosters are all fighting each other, or go where someone's playing cards and bet all my money? And he said, and that for most of us, we would go, well, that would be a dumb thing to do. Okay, and so for someone who did that, you might say, well, that was an idiot thing to do. That was a bad choice, because it could lead to consequences of losing their money. But he said, not all decisions are easy to see, as in what the consequences might be. He said, sometimes you'll have decisions like, should I leave my job and go work for someone else? Or should I buy that car? Or should I invest my money? Or should I spend all of my money on this person? And he said, sometimes you can't see what the consequences might be. And sometimes those consequences might be neutral. And often most decisions we make where you don't see the consequences are usually positive or neutral. And so they won't have an impact on your life. But he said, what you do is you sit back and you go, let me think about these decisions that I'm making. And he says, and think about what is the worst thing that possibly could happen. Because he said it's easy for people to look at things and look at the worst case scenarios, or what's the worst thing that could happen in the decisions that we make, than it is to kind of work out what the positives might be. And so, for instance, if you go and gamble, what are the worst things that can happen? Well, number one, you could lose your money, but is that the worst? Well, if you lose all your money and you're married, your wife won't be very happy. So there's going to be those kind of consequences, in the sense of you're going to have to deal with your family. Then you'll have your in-laws or your parents who will not be happy with you because you'd made a silly choice. Then it might be that you can't afford the car or afford the holiday or afford to do things that you were saving up for in the future. So there's other consequences. Or it could be that other people were relying on you because they thought you had some money and now you don't. And so then they can't rely on you anymore. So then therefore you might lose trust with people. And so you become untrustworthy. And so therefore that might have an impact, because then that gets back to your work. And then people find that you're not trustworthy in your life. And therefore they might not think you're trustworthy at work. And so you don't get the promotion, or you don't get looked at for an opportunity. And so something that might be small that you think it's not going to be significant, it's not going to have an impact, could have a massive ramification impact, because you made a decision and you were an idiot at that time. You just did the wrong thing. And so he says, what you should do is you should stand back when you're making big decisions, whether it be big decisions with your money, big decisions with other people in work, big decisions, to do with future opportunities, and say, okay, can I see what the future holds, in the sense of, if I made this decision, is it going to be good or bad? And if you can't see the bad, if you can't sit there and go, okay, this could have this impact, this could have that impact, this could have that impact. If you don't see all of that, generally they're going to be neutral or positive situations. And so you possibly could take up those opportunities and make those decisions. But if you sit there and go, yeah, the worst case scenario is that I could lose my job, or I could lose my wife, or I could lose my kids, or I could lose everything in the sense of my house, or, I won't be able to do all those things that I said I wanted to do. And then maybe you need to pause and go, that might not be the right decision that I'm making here. And maybe you shouldn't make that decision. I always say to my clients when they come and speak to me, they're running a business, I always say to them, if they've got significant money decisions to make, that they should speak to more than one person. So I like to use the analogy of a brick in a wall. So we have a brick in a wall, and there are 6 other bricks around each brick. If you go and look at a brick in a wall, for a house that's been built, there's a brick and there's 6 other bricks around that brick. So every brick has about 6 other bricks around it. And so I always say to people, if you're trying to make a decision and you're just not sure, or you find it hard to look at the, what are the consequences, go talk to 6 other people. Don't pick 6 people who have no idea. Go pick 6 people who are knowledgeable. When we talked about that before, tip 1, who are people who are knowledgeable? Pick people who have done well in business or who have money. So, there's going to be people around you that you'll know that are good with their money. I'm sure that even if you don't know them, but you went to approach them and say, can I have 5 minutes of your time? Can I ask you some questions? I'm sure most of the time they will help you and give you their opinion about a situation. And so you go to 6 people, ask their opinions, and get a well-rounded answer to your situation before you then decide. Because those other 6 people who might know you, or some people who don't, who are very knowledgeable, can help you make an informed decision going forward. And so that you reduce your likelihood of being an idiot. Okay, so that's tip number 2. Don't be an idiot. Think about what you're doing and the consequences in the future. Okay, thanks so much. I'll pause there and we'll come back to another tip very shortly. Hey everybody, I'm going to give you a quick tip. This one won't take as long. I mentioned it just before when I was talking about tip number 2. So the first, and I'll just reiterate. So first tip is knowledge. So power is knowledge. Learn as much as you can to do with money. The second is don't be an idiot. Okay, think about the things that you're doing and the impact that they will have. Number 3 is about spending time with people who are going to move you forward. Okay, so think about the people in your life and think about what type of people am I hanging around? Am I hanging around people who just spend their money, who are unwise with their money, who have no money? Or am I spending time with people who are knowledgeable, who value learning, who aren't idiots? All right, and so it's very important to think about the people that you associate with. They tend to say, in psychology and in groups, we're obviously humans and we like to form a pack, we like to be part of a group. We need to look at the group that we belong to or the group that we are a part of. And we need to ask ourselves, what kind of group am I in? Am I in a pack of idiots? Pack of people who don't value knowledge? Or actually, am I in with a group of people who value knowledge? Am I in a group of people who aren't idiots? Am I in a group of people who are kind and considerate? All right. Am I in a group of people who are diligent? Solomon says, that it's the people who are diligent who are going to succeed. Do I have people who are around who are diligent, hardworking, trustworthy? And I would encourage you to find people who can spur you on to be and do better. Don't just hang around the idiots. Okay, don't just hang around people who are just like getting drunk all the time, who spend all their money on smokes or alcohol. I'm not saying that you can't have a drink. All right, I have some alcohol, I drink, but I don't just go and just do that all the time. And I don't just hang around people who just drink all the time. Okay, I have friends who have got PhDs. I've got friends who are successful in business, and they spur me on to be better. They spur me on to improve my business and improve myself and for me to gain knowledge. Okay, so tip number 3 is, who are you spending time with? Who is your group? And I would challenge you to think about that and thinking about asking yourself, have you got people that you can hang around, be around, who are going to help you to become better? Okay? So I'll move on. I'll finish there and we'll come to another tip. Hi everybody. Tip number 4. It's all about marginal gains. Often we look at Facebook and we see all the people who are doing really well. And that's what we see. We see the end result. We see someone who's really beautiful, or we see someone who's really rich. We don't know if that's true or not. We don't know what has happened for them to get to that space. But for most of us, it's not about you are going to get there straight away. It's not I'm poor and I'm going to be rich tomorrow. I am not so good looking and I'm going to be the most beautiful person in the world. It doesn't happen overnight. And one of the things that we need to do is, as I talked about before with knowledge, gaining that knowledge, and talking about decades, working towards that task, those goals, getting there to obtain that knowledge. It's also about just life in general, about marginal gains. And what we mean by that is that instead of trying to say to yourself, I must be this tomorrow, because often most people can't be disciplined enough to get to do those things tomorrow, let alone the next day, the next day, the next day, the next day. And so what we say is, what are you trying to achieve? Do it a small thing that is manageable, that you can do every single day. So as an example, in my life, and I'll just add what I do, which is a marginal gain. So obviously I work a lot of hours. I probably work 70 hours a week. And from a self-care point of view, I don't do a lot of physical activity. I eat pretty well. I mean, I do drink my alcohol, but I don't do a lot of physical activity. And I drink a lot of coffee. And so one of the things that I wanted to do was I wanted to try and drink a little bit more water. I heard someone say once they were a specialist in gut, in dieting, and they said, because we always hear about that you should drink 2.5 liters of water a day, or 3 liters of water a day, or 2 gallons of water a day. And that can be a lot of water that you have to drink. And most people do not drink that much water. I don't know hardly any person who religiously every day drinks the water that they suggest you should drink. So this person who was talking about dieting, he said, and he kind of enlightened me. He said, it's not about drinking that water, that 2.5 liters or 3 liters per day. He said, the most important drink of the day is your first one. And he said, if you can have that first large glass of water in the morning as your first drink before you eat anything and before you have any coffees or teas, he says that will have a good impact on your body long term. And so instead of me trying to go, I'm going to have to try and drink 2.5 liters, 3 liters of water every day, which I knew was going to be nearly impossible, I thought I can do that 1 glass of water in the morning every day. And so I now, every morning I wake up, I have a cup near the sink. And one of the first things that I do is I will drink that 1 glass of water every single day. And now I've got to the point that if I don't have my glass of water in the morning before I have my coffee, I'm actually feeling it. I'm actually like, oh, I didn't have my water. And so I've now gone from, instead of trying to do 2.5 liters of water every day, I'm having at least a glass of water at the start of the day. And he said, this person who was talking about gut, he said, having that glass of water during the day, it cleans your gut. And he said, then you can have coffee or tea, not soda drinks, so not sugary drinks, but coffee and tea which has water in it. And you can drink then those drinks which add up to your 2.5 liters per day. And I thought that's way more manageable, and it's like marginal gain for me. It's not like the impossible. It's something little that I can apply to my life and do it every single day. And that's just one example. And it's the same with exercise or sleep or nutrition or meditation. Don't try and do the impossible, all right? Something that you go, I'm going to do this every single day. I'm going to go to the gym every single day, because what will happen is you won't. But what you do is you say, what can I do that is a marginal gain that will improve my life? Okay, and why am I saying this? Because it will have an impact on your money. And how does that have an impact on money? Well, as an example, if you're eating better, so let's say you're someone who loves to have takeaway every single night and you're putting on weight. And that weight is making you not sleep so well. And it's making you not work so well at work. Or you're finding it hard to work longer hours, and so you're earning less money. Or you're not getting the best opportunities at work because you're finding you're tired all the time. So instead of saying, right, I'm going to lose 20 kilos, I'm going to go to the gym every single day, I'm going to do all these things that are possibly for you impossible, what you do is you do something marginal. You say, I'm buying takeaway every single day, lunch, dinner, I don't eat breakfast. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop buying takeaway every second day, and I'm going to make a meal, or I'm going to, cook something one night. And so you've got to think about your lifestyle, and you've got to think about what you can and can't do, and just do it marginally. Just change something small, and then next year do another small thing and add to it and add to it and add to it. And then you might see that you might start to lose a bit of weight, and you might start to have better sleeps, and you might be better at work. And so if you're better at work, you might get that promotion, or you might get more money coming in. So it all relates, because whilst I'm giving you tips about knowledge, I'm giving you tips to do with, who the groups are, people that you are with. Okay, I'm giving you tips about don't be an idiot. Okay, now I'm giving you tips about marginal gains, about looking at your life across all sectors to do with sleep, exercise, nutrition. Okay, is to say, have a go at doing those little things, add to it, because everything that we do has an impact on money. If you're not healthy, you're going to spend more money to try and have more drugs or other things to try and keep you healthy, right? As in not to get sick all the time, because the unhealthy people get sick more often. So if you're sick all the time, well, then you need to look at yourself and say, can I eat better? Can I sleep better? All right? And so everything has an impact, and everything has an impact from a money perspective. So that's my other tip, is marginal gain. All right? Don't try and conquer the world tomorrow. Do something small that's going to have an impact. I mean, as the last example is, there was someone who wanted to lose weight, and I'm 52. It's easy to put on weight as soon as you get over 40 for some reason. I don't know what it is. I kind of joke. I say I look at food and I put on weight. Whereas people who are young, they can eat. My son who's 20, he can just keep eating, and he's very skinny. Me, one little lolly, one little biscuit, it's like I put on half a kilo the next day. It drives me nuts. And and so I'm trying to lose weight. But what it is I'm not saying to myself, I'm going to lose 20 kilos this year. What someone said is they're going to, someone else who was really heavy, who was heavy weighted, who was already over 50, they said to all their friends, I'm going to lose 1 kilo every year going forward. So he might have been 98 kilos, and he was going to go, next year I'm going to be 97. The following year I'm going to be 96. And so his marginal gain was, every year I'm just going to lose 1 kilo instead of trying to lose a whole heap of weight. Because it's easier as we get older to put on a kilo every year. So he was just going to go and do it the opposite. I'm going to lose a kilo every year until I get to a certain weight. And he was successful because he did it marginally. He didn't put pressure on himself, and he just did it bite-sized, a little by little, but it was an improvement to his life. So that's the next tip. Hi everybody, I'm here to talk about the next tip. And this tip I'm going to be calling the unseen universal principles. And that sounds a bit unusual, but I'm going to explain what I mean. So as there are physical laws that govern the physical universe, I believe there are basically invisible principles that govern us. And so as an example, if we think about physical laws, if you drive a car and you drive it really fast and you lose control, you could physically hit another car or someone else and injure someone. And that's a physical law. We have laws applied to us, how we cross the road, and the consequences if you try to run across the road. or do other things, you might get hit by a car. So there's all these physical laws, but I believe there are these invisible laws that govern our lives. As an example, I believe if you're generous, that you will get given back to you, whether it be money, time. So I believe there's a principle of giving. Now, for people who go to church, you might call it tithing or an offering. But other people who don't go to church, I would encourage you to think about finding a way to give, to bless others. And I believe there's a principle in that if you are giving of your money, giving of your time, because it doesn't have to necessarily be money if you don't have the money to give, but you can give of your time, then I believe that will come back to you as a blessing, or as, it'll come back to you in some way and it'll benefit you. And I think it's the same with money. So if you do have money, is to give some of it away. So if you're earning a certain amount of wage or salary, think about giving some of those funds, whether it be each week or monthly or during the year, away to bless someone. Give it to a charity, give it to someone who's the next door neighbor who might need help. Help people financially giving it, and I believe that in return you'll get given that back. I think there are these other underlying principles as well that govern how things operate. One of the things is that if you're kind, kindness goes a long way, and I think it's an underlying principle of kindness and honesty. Those value kind of moral things, they're hard to teach someone. You can learn them, but I think there's blessings, or there's things that happen or occur if you are not only generous with your money and your giving, but also if you're kind-hearted, and if you're patient, and if you show these virtues. I believe that there's these principles, these invisible things that govern us that will benefit you. Now, I don't want you to be doing these things with the sole purpose of trying to receive something. I think you need to learn to be giving without the expectation of receiving, to do kind things without the expectation that people have to be kind to you. There's nothing worse than if someone does something kind and you're like, oh, that's so lovely, I'm so blessed that you did that to me. And then next week they remind you, I was kind to you, so I expect you now to be kind to me. Or I was kind to you, or I gave you some money, so now I have this expectation that you should treat me a certain way. Or, why is it that if I was kind to you, why are you being upset? You shouldn't be upset because I was kind to you. You can't do that. You have to separate it. You have to be generous without expecting. You have to be kind and patient without expecting. And so doing those things without expectation is great, but I do believe there's these principles, these governing principles that will come back to you. I believe if you're diligent, if you work hard, apply yourself, that you'll get rewards. And if you read Proverbs like we talked about before, there's lots of mentioning of these other governing laws. Like one of them in the Bible is talking about respecting your parents that you might live long in the land. I mean, that's not a physical law, but it's a governing law that God talks about, that if you believe in God, there's that law of respecting your parents. And so there's these laws or these other principles, these spiritual principles or other principles woven in the fabric of our lives that are out there. And you might try as hard as you might to ignore them, but I believe they have an impact on us. And so it's good to try and understand what some of these other governing invisible principles are, so that you can have some understanding and apply it. And I'd get you to test it. If you go to church, try and tithe a little bit more or give. If you don't go to church, try and look around to see what you can do to be generous and kind and patient and give to others, because you will get that blessing. You will get that'll come back to you. So that's the next principle, is these invisible governing principles that we're sometimes not aware of, that have an impact on us and around us. Okay, thanks. Hi everybody, I want to start talking about some of the more practical things that we can do in regards to financial literacy or improving our situations from a money perspective. One of the things that I already talked about was power is knowledge. So I'd encourage everybody to read. There's plenty of books out there that can help you. One of the books that I think has been fantastic, and there's a lot, is this book, which is called basically, I think if I can get it out here to get you guys to see it, that light is a bit hard. So you can see that. It's probably easier. The Richest Man Who Ever Lived, King Solomon. Okay, written by Stephen K. Scott. It's a great book, a great read. Highly recommend everybody to have a read of that. It's based on the Proverbs in the Bible. And there's a lot of other money books out there. I mean, you'd be surprised. I've got a lot of books on my shelf to do with tax and psychology and everything else, but there's a lot of just general money books that you can purchase. From another practical point of view, to help with financial literacy or to help improve your money situation, is I call it a spending plan. Most people refer to it as a budget. People don't like to budget, and they don't like to try and budget, but it's really important to kind of have an understanding of where your money is going. So it doesn't matter how much you earn. What you should do is you should see or try and work out where you're spending your money. If you're a couple in a relationship, it's good to try and discuss or have a discussion about, where's our money going? What are we doing with our money? Because often when you start to look at where you're spending your money, you might find that there's things that you're spending your money on that are not practical, or you probably don't need to be spending your money on those things, and that money could be saved or invested or done in a better way so that you can in the future have more money. So there's what I call spending plan or a budget. If you would like to have us send out a budget to you that you can fill out, we use an Excel for our clients. We send them a income and expense Excel. You can look at the expense side of it, and you guys can go through and just try and work out what maybe you're spending your money on. So it's more relevant to Australian clients to do with rates on houses or rent that you might pay, food that you spend, and other discretionary items, holidays. But it's very similar. You guys have either a mortgage or you might be paying rent. I'm sure, you'll have food that you need to buy. There might be petrol. There might be the telephone costs and just these other day-to-day expenses that you need to take care of. And then there's other things like what we call discretionary expenses, clothing, holidays, they're all discretionary. So there's the weekly ones that you need to spend your money on. So we have what's called fixed, and they're like your insurances and other things that you have to have, like car insurance or house insurance. Then we have like the weekly, we call them weekly, because every week you need to spend money on these things like food and petrol. They're like weekly items. And then we have the discretionary, holidays, clothing, other assets that you might want to purchase during the year, like another phone or a computer or whatever it is that you spend your money on. Those discretionary items, they're the things that are flexible. Usually the fixed costs and the weekly costs, you have to spend that money, but the discretionary you don't need to, and it's more of a luxury thing or an item that you go, I would like to spend that much money. And so you work out what your budget is. So we encourage everybody to go through the spending plan and to look at their budget. We also ask people to look at their future goals. Everybody has a goal. Everybody has something that they want to do from a money perspective. So, what is it that you want to spend your money on in the future? How much will it cost to save up for that? So, and it's the same for anyone, doesn't matter where you live. So for us, you know, my goal at the moment is I'm trying to renovate a kitchen, and the costs of, you know, a new oven and a range hood, gas appliances, just the kitchen cabinetry, it's very expensive here in Australia to get those items. And so I'm budgeting or trying to work out, you know, how to save up for those items that's going to be quite costly. And so it's always good to have your future goals that are not just in your normal budget. So future goals are like traveling overseas for a holiday, or upgrading your car, or renovating your kitchen or your house. They're future goals. You want to know roughly how much it's going to cost you, when you think you might be able to afford it, because obviously what you want to do is look at your yearly budget, see what your savings is, to then calculate how long is it going to be before I meet my future goal. And so it's all about planning. It's about planning your budget, planning your future goals, having that financial plan so that you've got a direction and you've got things that you're trying to achieve. So we get our clients to fill out the spending plan, to look at their future goals. Obviously, we take all that information and we put it into modeling for the clients and model it all out for them. The other thing to consider from a practical point of view is insurances. I know in the Philippines that you have what we call, I think, is a whole of life product, where you have insurances and investments built in one. We used to have those in Australia, but we don't do them anymore. We separate it. We have now just insurance separate to investments. And so it might be that you need to consider with your money whether or not you can afford life insurance or not. So that if you do pass away, your family members pay off any debts or mortgages or anything, or helps them going forward. But I understand in the Philippines that life insurance can be very expensive, and so not everybody can afford life insurance, which is a shame. Investments. We help our clients to invest their money. So they do have some savings, they might want to invest their money. Obviously, you want to get professionals to do that for you, unless you do have a bit of knowledge with investing. But the whole idea is that if you've got spare money, you're not just sticking it under your bed. You're putting it in the bank to get interest, or you're investing it to get a bit of a return, so you can make money on your money, so you have a little bit more in the future. I'm just trying to think what's another practical thing to help in regards to your situation. I think it's important to think about the future of your retirement. Again, you know, we talked about budgeting and future goals. Well, one of the things that we need to think about is when you're going to stop work, and how much money will you have at the time you are going to stop work. And that's a hard question to answer for a lot of people. But if you can work that out and understand how much you need in retirement to work out how long you need to work for to earn that money, well, that's a good thing to do, is to take that time to just think about, you know, what does retirement look like for me? How much money will I need? How do I then get to earn or save that money for retirement? So they're just some of the practical things that I would get you guys to consider and talk amongst yourselves if you want to, if you feel comfortable about it. A lot of people don't feel comfortable talking about their money because it's a comparison thing, or, you know, some people have more, some people have less. But if you can, like I said, a bricks in the wall, if you can talk to other people and get some ideas about how you can improve your own situation, that's fantastic. So sharing those ideas would be good. So yeah, I'm more than happy in June if you'd like to. When I come over, I'm hoping to come over in June once again. If you would all like to get together, or anyone wants to get together and just have a chat over a meal, like if you as staff wish to do something at that time and you would like me to come and you like to just ask questions or talk, more than happy to do that and to be one of those bricks for you for now and in the future. So that's, I think, enough from me today. I hope you got some value out of my tips. I hope I've helped you from a practical point of view. Feel free to reach out if you want to get our Excel for the budgeting side of things and the future goals forms, so that you can just use some kind of template to help you get going. Don't forget to look at books that you can purchase in regards to it. If you'd like me to suggest some books, I can potentially do that, but they're more related to Australian people rather than the Filipino people. Maybe someone needs to write a financial book for the Philippines. Maybe that's something my team and I can look at doing and providing that to people at an affordable rate or something. Write a book that would be more relevant for everybody who's living there, or potentially doing a course or something, or a free course to help people with their money. So look, I'm really pleased and happy that you've asked me to speak. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to have the time to do this for you because we are going away next week. So I'm thankful that I was able to provide this information to you. I hope you did find it useful. I look forward to working with you all in the future. I hope you all have a great Christmas and a happy New Year, and that it's a safe one for you all, and that you have a great time with your family and friends on holidays coming up. Thank you from myself. I'm Warren Strybosch, the founder of the Fine Group. And thank you on behalf of all of my team who work in Honeywye. And we look forward again to the relationship between us and yourselves. And I hope you have a great rest of the year. Thank you so much.